Greetings, my friends, and happy day to you. I'm going to talk to you about something that happened to me in the middle of the night in New York City. Um, I guess I was in my 30s. I don't know, probably. And I wanted to go out, and it was Monday night, and I was living on the Upper East Side in the 60s, close, not far from Bloomingdale's, around the corner from the Rockefeller House and Nixon's brownstone. And um, so I had to go, down to the East Village. I was looking for a certain bar. I wanted to go to a gay bar called the Boy Bar, which I heard had a lot of activity on Monday night. So I'd never been there, so I wanted to check it out. And so I went down at about midnight because you definitely don't want to show up at a nightclub before midnight in Manhattan. And so I got down there and I couldn't find it. And I knew it was somewhere in the alphabet streets. A, B, C, D, Alphabet City, they call it. Lower East Side, far east, east of First Avenue. Then it becomes some alphabets where Manhattan kind of like widens out down there. It's a very, used to be a very bad neighborhood. There are a lot of burned out buildings still, and it still wasn't really kind of like your safest neighborhood, even though all of Manhattan is pretty safe, but it was probably one of the roughest areas in Manhattan. So I saw a guy walking down the street by a vacant lot with a chain link fence, and on the side I was at was burned out buildings. So the street wasn't very busy with people, which I usually found safety in numbers in Manhattan because there's always people everywhere. Well, the street didn't have people everywhere. And I go and up to this guy to ask him where this place is, and he pulls a knife on me. And he looks like the Candyman in that movie, Candyman, that takes place in Chicago. It kind of looks like that. And pulls the knife on me, and my immediate reaction was, and instead of to fight and get stabbed or something, was to pull myself towards the knife and to tell him, you don't need that. So I pulled myself towards the knife and told him, you don't need that. And of course, he had a strong grip on me at the same time too, but he realized there wasn't going to be an immediate physical encounter. So the immediate, act of stabbing somebody or robbing somebody wasn't going to happen right there. But he had a grip on me with the knife, and so he started pulling me across the street towards the abandoned building. And I just went along with him because I didn't want to get stabbed and have a fight. And he was bigger than me, definitely desperate for something, which I was about ready to find out what it was. So as he pushes me into this dark building that's completely black, and the ground floor is all busted up, there's nothing in there except rubbish, construction rubbish, and it's dark. And he guides me to a plank, a wooden plank, and starts pushing me up it. And so I walk up the plank till we get to where there are actually stairs. And still everything's really dark. And he's got me at knife point, and it's like 12:30 at night or 1 o'clock in the morning. And I don't know what's going to happen next. I have no idea. And so we keep going up these stairs, another flight in the dark. Apparently he's familiar with it because he has no problem knowing where he's going. I can't see anything. All of a sudden he opens the door and there is light. And in that room, or series of rooms on that floor of this abandoned building, which is probably like the third floor, there are people laying around everywhere, alive, barely alive. And they're all smoking crack or doing various things. There's a couple on the other side of a broken wall, having sex on the floor on a dirty mattress. And then in the main room are people laying around, ready to do crack, which I'd never seen or done, before. I would never had an addiction problem to drugs. So he sits down, the people are all making eyes at me as we sit down with them, and he proceeds to load up a crack pipe and pretty much insists that I smoke it. And so I had my first experience with it there, and I smoked some, and the other people there are making eye gestures like, be careful, watch out of this guy, but they're so strung out, all they care about is their next hit of crack, because it only lasts like 25 minutes, the high from that, and then immediately crave more. So these were young people. They were like yuppies. They were kids with trust funds, that have spent everything that they have just to live there in an abandoned building with stolen electricity wired in, so that they could have light at least. And their only goal was to, do crack all day and all night long. And that's it. So I got to see that, all these young people throwing away their lives. There wouldn't be any old ones doing that because they would already be dead. So I was probably the oldest person in the room, in my 30s. And immediately after I did it, he's like, okay, we got to go get some money, out of your bank and get some more crack. And at that point, I was like, okay, yeah, because I just smoked it. I wanted some more. It was starting to wear off. So I went to the ATM and I emptied out whatever hundreds of dollars I had in there, and he went and got more crack, and then ditched me. So there I was, robbed like $600, been forced to do crack my first time, strung out because I wanted more, and minus about $650. Could have been worse. Could have been a lot worse. So there was no raping, there was no stabbing, there was no killing. And I had an experience that I was exposed to that I can write about or talk about, that unless you see how these people live and what they're doing. And I mean, they would only eat to survive, and it would be something awful like, a donut and some milk, just to get them through till, they can have their next crack, hit a crack. And that was before crystal meth became like the popular thing, which I avoid the crystal meth people like crazy. But now I can smell it. Because of that experience, I can smell those kinds of drugs on people immediately. I can feel the hand, the cold clamminess of the hand, the lack of a strong grip. I can smell the essence of the chemicals coming out of them. So thanks to that experience, I know that it's a horrible thing, that it's a very bad drug that doesn't last long enough to make it worth it. It's destructive and super addictive. And I'm just not like a figurehead walking around saying just say no. I'm like somebody that has actually experienced what it is and seen the effects that it has on people and what they're willing to sacrifice for it. And hopefully, avoid or help people avoid doing it or using it. But definitely I know how to detect somebody that's using. Even if they're functional and they have a job at Walmart or wherever they are, I can smell it. I can smell drug users. I'm not talking about marijuana. It's a plant. It's natural. I'm talking about highly processed, synthesized drugs, things that have been denatured. And your best bet in life and in this world is to not engage and interact with those people. They have to go through what they have to go through. And our government has cut off a lot of funding for mental health care and drug addiction. Thanks to the greatest president we ever had, President Reagan, most of the mental health care facilities were emptied out and people were thrown out in the streets. And the bare bones that we do provide for society is actually more damaging than it is good. And a lot of people will be mad at me about this, and they'll be like, yes, you should call 911 and have people committed and put them in these drug programs that don't work. In many areas, there are some areas where they do it right. They spend extra money locally to make these drug rehab places functional. But in the country and rural area where I live, it's the biggest disgrace. You know, these people have the poorest income in my area. They live in the most rural area, and the treatment available to them is not even treatment. It is a total disgrace. It's a harsh environment. It's a punitive environment. It's not a supporting or nurturing environment. There are no healthy meals served. Everybody's treated like a prisoner, even if they're a pain volunteer admitted patient, they're still treated the same way. And they don't come out of there doing any better. They have a 90% failure rate, and most of them die within a couple of years from suicide or a drug overdose, because they clean them out, but they don't prepare them for going back and the craving that they'll have. And then they keep thinking they have to do the same amount once they've been cleaned out, and that same amount kills them on their first try or second try. So this is the Abducted at Knife Point in Alphabet City into the crack underworld experience that I had one night when I was looking for entertainment spot. And that's what I got. We'll be talking about some other things, and we'll do some more spiritual work soon. There's just a lot of clearing out of the past stuff that has to happen right now. And I wish you all a happy day and lots of love. Thank you for watching. If you can subscribe and share and like all that stuff, it really helps. Eventually, it will help me to be able to survive and to do a better job here with some more interesting things and some edits and some locations, shoots, and everything will just get better and better, which is what I hope for you, and blessings for you every day and all the time. Love you. Bye.